Good day, everybody. Here we are again discussing the task 1 exercise for the IELTS academic exam. And in my first two videos, I discussed the main features you want to mention in your response. We saw the main features that we want to mention in the introduction, and also the main features that we want to mention in the overall statement. And now we're going to continue with the body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2, in which we are going to continue, of course, mentioning main features among others. Now, as you already know, the structure of this response would be basically that you are going to write 4 paragraphs: 1 for the introduction, 1 for the overall statement, 1 for body paragraph 1, and also 1 for body paragraph 2. Now, in body paragraph 1 and in body paragraph 2, we are going to describe some main features. Let's take a look at our graph. The first thing that I would mention is the point where the line begins. Now take a look at the yellow line, company C. It begins here around $63 billion. The number is not exact, and this is also an important element because we do not have exact information, and that's why in many cases you want to say it began approximately at 3 billion, or it is around 5 million, or it's around 3 megatons. So right, because we do not have this exact information, you want to use this extra vocabulary like around, approximately, more or less, to say that well, it's not exact, of course, right? And as you can also see in the third word that I'm using in this sentence, interestingly, company C began, and as you can see, this is in the past tense. Remember that the information was measured in 2020 and 2021. This means that the information is in the past, and that's why you have to use the past tense. Pay very much attention to that, please. Okay? Because if you throw in here a simple present simple or present perfect, it would be considered wrong. Okay, so I begin with the 63 billion, and then I continued explaining what happens after that, right? And then it dropped. There are many verbs that I can use, of course, to describe this movement, but I chose to use the word dropped also in the past tense. How much did it drop? Well, I add here an adverb quickly to express how the trend drops, right? And then I mention the word to around 53 in the first quarter. Now, as you can see, I begin here with the 63, the point of the beginning, and then what happens next? It dropped to the next point of change. That would be 53 in the first quarter. And what then happens? It rebounds basically, but I chose to use the word rebounding sharply. Sharply is another adverb that I want to use to express how this movement actually happened. It happened sharply, hitting its peak in the second quarter, reaching 75. Now, what you can do next is, of course, is discuss each and every point of change, and normally that would be perfect, but if you do this for all these lines, you will need a lot of time, because you need to write down a lot of information. So we don't really have so much time, and then you have to make some kind of a compromise and say, you know what, maybe I'm not going to mention all the other points of change and the and the movement within this change. Let's say that after hitting the peak in 75, I just say, you know what, after that It nosedived considerably with 30 billion in the third quarter in 2020, and it bounced all the way down to $30 billion at the end of the period. Yes. Now here I skip, of course, a lot of points of changes, but yeah, sometimes you have to make some kind of a compromise by doing something like this, because you simply do not have enough time to write about everything, right? I think it becomes clear that it continues declining, right? Now let's take a look at the next line that is also going down, and that was the gray line. Now as you can see, in this line just goes down. There are some points of change that you would normally definitely mention. However, because you cannot write about everything, you want to perhaps make some big steps in order to finish it. Now let's take a look at it. Company E started around $55 billion. I did the same thing, right? I mentioned the beginning. And then what happens now? Basically, it continued going down all the way to 20 in the fourth quarter of 2021. Now I put that into a sentence, and then you get something like this. Company E started, past tense, around the $55 billion in the first quarter of 2020 and slided gradually down to 20 in the fourth quarter in 2021. Now, of course, now after this I will describe the other two lines, and the procedure is basically the same. In the next slide I will show you, and I will read it so that you have it complete as well, and then I will mention some extra details that you definitely want to take into consideration. Let's take a quick look at the last body paragraph. Company M, however, as you can see, I put that one in yellow because that is one of the comparisons that I want to mention. Remember, in the task they ask you mention comparisons where relevant. So here I have another one. Company M, however, started, past tense. I might use another word for started, right? Because now I'm repeating myself, and maybe it would be better to find another word. Initiated, perhaps. Started at the bottom with approximately 33 and continued steadily around 38 1 year later. Subsequently, the revenue climbed considerably with almost 20 billion, falling back to around 45, but regained its march upwards, hitting almost 50 in the fourth quarter of 2021. Company A, despite some minor glitches along the way, initiated with a modest 42 billion in the first quarter of 2020 and continued surging to almost 75 in the fourth quarter of 2021. So what it basically comes down to is that you describe the line from point to point, and like I said, especially with the yellow line, sometimes you have to make some compromises, and you cannot mention really everything. But if you write that down in a nice manner, I think that would not be a problem. Now, let's take another look at the first body paragraph. The words in red we could consider that's interesting language, right? Because interesting, let's say interesting is something that is not usual, so you could say that these words in red are maybe unusual vocabulary, and it would be appreciated, I'm sure, by the examiners if you can throw in these little things to give your writing an extra piece of finesse, perhaps taste, maybe less boring, right? So because if not, it might look a little bit mechanical, and that is also something that you may want to avoid, of course, right? So here, rebounding would be a nice piece of vocabulary. Hitting its peak, definitely. Nosedived is a word that normally people wouldn't use. Bounced all the way down, this is also nice vocabulary, I guess. And slided gradually downwards, that's also nice vocabulary that you may want to add to your writing as well. Of course, there are so many words that you can use. This is just an let's say an example of it, right? In the next body paragraph 2, I use words like climbed, falling back, regained its march upwards despite some minor glitches along the way, modest and surging. These are all nice pieces of vocabulary that you would like to use in your writing as well. Now, I definitely would like to urge you to study these 3 videos, because there I definitely explain how to read basically the graph, the line graph in this case, of course, the line graph, what the main features are, what to do with the main features in the introduction, in the overall statement, what to write down in the body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2, and of course what kind of an extra vocabulary you can use as well. So I hope this was useful, and if you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I intend to upload more videos, of course, and then when you are subscribed, automatically you will be in the loop every time I upload a new video. Check out the subscription of this video. There also you can find a link to a sneak preview of the book that I have written about this topic, that perhaps is also something that you may want to consider. It's definitely worthwhile taking a look at it. All right, now everybody, thank you again, and see you next time. Ciao.